We begin the current Daf, Mesech Yevamos Daf begin 18 lines down at the top of the Yomik, where our Gemara continues in the related discussion to the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah opened up this parak, this Mesechta, with 15 women that are poiches, Tzarasein, Tzarasein, and the Chalitzim and the Yibum, which, because they're an erba, they cannot have Yibum done with them, and therefore even their tzaras, their kohabs, are also exempt. So the Gemara introduces different cases, interesting cases, which actually, according to some interpretations in the beginning of our parak, we discussed that that's why the Mishnah says 15 to exclude these women, that these are not included in the halach of the Mishnah. But we have different cases that are possibly similar to the Chamesh Nashim of our Mishnah. Some of the things we're discussing today's daf are me'enes, which is the halacha that generally a girl doesn't have das. She cannot make kedushin until she's a gedela. When she's a ketana, her father could minatayr, go ahead and marry her off. What happens if the father is dead, or actually even if the father is alive, they had once married her off and then she got divorced? It's halacha that rabbinically her mother and her brothers can go ahead and marry her off. But since it's only rabbinic, the rabbis allow that if the girl refuses, she doesn't have to stay married. She's called a me'enes, and without even a get, she could go free as long as she did this before she became a gedayla. I don't know this, the halacha that when there's a woman that's over age 20 and she has not developed signs of being able to have a child, we presume it to be someone that cannot have a child, and as we'll see, there'll be significance for that regarding the laws of Yibum. Mekach Tayis, in general, means to say that there's a mistaken acquisition, that there was a false pretense, which that relates to Kedushay Tayis, which is that if someone says, this is not what I had in mind when I got married, therefore that would make it like as if there was never Kedusha in the first place. Simonim, which are the signs of maturity, which by an individual, a human being, it's when they bring shtei saris, when they have two pubic hairs, both for a man and a woman. That's signs that they're a gadol or a gedayla. So begin the Daf Yud Beis, 18 lines down at the top of the Yomik. Just in general, the halacha is that when you have a man who's married to two women, one is the gedayla and one is a yisem ketana, which is that her father is still alive, but she's considered an orphan in her father's lifetime, where her marriage was rabbinic, or even if the father's not alive. Point is that in general, that when you're doing yibum to the brother, it's going to be with the gedayla, because the ketana is only rabbinic marriage, it's not a biblical marriage. And yibum is a biblical commandment for that of the Eishesach, which would be with the gedayla. Now, however, if the ketana was an erva to the yavam, to this ach, so the halacha is going to be that the tzara, although generally when you have an erva, the wife is no chalitza, no yibum, in that case it's going to be chaletzes below misabemis. And the reason why that is because it's only a tzaras erva midirabban, only rabbinically it's a tzaras erva, because that erva has only rabbinic marriage to this brother, to the Baal who passed away, and this brother is only his brother's wife rabbinically, not biblically. And now we're going to see regarding a case as the Gemara introduces Omer Lili bar Mamel Omer Mar Ukva Omer Shmuel. So he says the following halacha. He says Tzaras mima'enes, when there's a tzara, let's say they fell in front of him two Yevamos from one brother. One was an adult, one was a minor, and the minor did miyun to him. So this wife, the ketana, is doing miyun to the brother. Now, generally, what happens is that when you do miyun, it's not an eishes hames. In other words, let's say, just to backdrop a little bit, actually, we're going to introduce this in a moment, but our Mishnah said, B'kulan and Mesu, we said all the arayis, if they did miyun, or they were divorced, or they were found out to be an analyst before the brother died, so he said tzarasei mutaras. Why is that? Because that makes that at the time of the death, this woman that's a gedayla was not a tzara of this erva, because once she does miyun, it's like as if she was not an eishes hames at the time of the death, just like divorced or she found out to be an honest, and then she would be mutter to the Baal. And Now, another case, that's if, let's say, she had done miyun when the husband was still alive. So then, by the time he died, she was not a co-wife at all. So therefore, it wouldn't be a problem for this woman to be a tzaras erva. Now, what happens if, let's say, the katana does miyun to the brother, not to the husband? Our Mishnah spoke about when we introduced in the second to the husband. What happens if she does miyun to the yavam, as we call him? So that says the Gemara, the tzara of the me'enes, if the katana did miyun to the yavam, the tzara is going to be asura. She's going to be forbidden. So it says the Gemara, Lama.
Provided that you mean that the mother married her off to the first husband?
Yeah, I mean,
she
yeah.
became a yibam through that.
She's a katana. She was a katana married. Yeah, you could only do miyun. Her mother married her off, let's say,
the original husband, and then he died, and now the brother is taking over as a yibam, so that's still considered an issuing of a katana through the mother that she could be mimayed.
Yeah, and then she's falling for yibum to the brother through the rabbinic marriage, so the tzara is going to be asa. So the Gemara says, wait a second, Lama, for whom is she asa? If he's saying that it's even to the other brothers that she's forbidden, meaning, again, she did miyun to this brother. So who's she asur to? If it's for the other brothers, meaning who is the tzava asur to? If it's to the other brothers, well, hashtahi gufa sharia, if the me'enes herself is permitted to the other brothers, which is just adding a few variables. We don't actually have an actual graph for that, but hashtahi gufa sharia, if the me'enes herself is actually permitted to the other brothers, Shmuel says miyan the bezeh, muteres bezeh. If let's say this katana does miyun to brother number one, and there's another brother, she's actually muteres to the other brother for yibum. As we'll see already, this opinion on later on Kavzayin Mabeis. But tzaras mebaya. So do you have to tell me regarding the tzara? In other words, this woman that does miyun to this brother, so miyun is like a refusal, like as if she's not married for him, but she's actually permitted to the other brother that's not mentioned over here. So if she's muteres, so for sure the tzara of this woman who's doing miyun, for sure is going to be permitted. And again, this is not talking about an Arab, but this is talking about in general. We have a minor who's doing miyun. You're doing miyun, so like as if there's no marriage over here. So the tzara of the me'enes we're saying is asa. So we're saying who is she asa to? If it's to the other brothers, even the me'enes herself is permitted to the other brothers. So says the Gemara, no ela didei. We're talking about to that yavam that you did miyun to, the tzara of that me'enes is going to be forbidden. Why is that? Because miyun uproots the zika bond and makes it as if, which is very complex, and makes it as if there's no zika because you're doing miyun, but it remains with the isav eshasaf because it's taking away the zika bond. So then Rashi addresses the question. He says, I don't understand. Miyun, what's miyun doing? Miyun is saying that I'm doing a refusal on which marriage? On the first marriage, the one that she had to the Baal. So
even though he's still alive.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, exactly. What is she refusing? Exactly, right. But what else does she do miyun on? So you're saying is she doing miyun on
Zika?
Could she do miyun on Zika? What is that? That's not something, right? That's not something that her mother did or whatever. And if if it's undoing what her mother did, then it's undoing whatever was done originally, L'mafreya. I mean, she was never married to the first husband. So then she's a nachris to this brother. So she should be permitted to this brother. Why are you saying the one that she does miyun to, she's going to be forbidden to? You're telling me the other brothers that Shmuel tells us that she's permitted to. So it can't be that Sarah is what we're talking about as a problem. So you're talking about for this brother. So what are you talking about? Why is she even ushered to this brother? She's not related to him at all. She was not his brother's wife. She was never his wife. So why is that forbidden to this brother?
Can she do chalitza to the brother?
Why chalitza versus yibum even?
Yeah.
Why can't she even get married to him?
Let's say she doesn't want to be married to him. So she can do either one, miyun or chalitza?
I'm saying after miyun, she did miyun already.
No, let's say she didn't do miyun.
Oh, miyun, then she's considered a regular.
As the brother, she would be Mamayanis if she would want to divorce him, so to speak. She doesn't have to go through the divorce process.
The husband or the brother?
No, original husband.
Original husband. She was able to walk out with miyun.
With miyun. So what? So there's no get. There's no.
Doesn't need a
What
get.
get doesn't apply. So why would the chalitza apply to the brother? It wouldn't apply.
Well, is she because she is a rabbinically a wife? So if she's rabbinically a wife,
So she can.
so then there's a zika bond.
Can she do
rabbinically.
chalitza or miyun? Either one. Does the word chalitza come into play even in such a relationship?
That's the shayla. We'll see. There's a kuf zayin, but l'chara, yeah, because she's even yibum or chalitza, she's considered the brother's wife without any children. So then she's falling for zika to the brother.
Yeah, but you got to plant to the gedolah, so you need to do chalitza because the gedolah is their rice.
Right.
You have a problem.
Right. So we'll see that exactly. But for now, the Gemara is just discussing regarding this brother, regarding the ma'anis herself. You're telling me about the tsar of the menace. We'll get to that in a second, says the Gemara. But okay, we're talking about her. So Rashi's bothered. He says, you're telling me that we're talking about for this brother himself, that the ma'anis is problem, and we're telling that even the tsar's ma'anis is a problem. Why is ma'anis herself a problem? So Rashi is explaining because she's being oiker de zika. Oh, so you're Eish Zach. Because you're uprooting the zika. What's zika? Zika is basically your yibum bond. And that permits Eish Zach. No, you're being oikered by doing miyun. What do you mean? Oiker miyun. I'm oiker the whole Eish Zach shabai. I was never married to your brother. You could marry me. I was like Danusa of your brother. Danusa is permitted to the brother.
Yeah, but she did miyun to the ach and not to the ba.
Right, so that's what it sounds like, that you have to understand what is the lumdus and what is she doing to the brother. She's not really, when she's doing it to him, it's because he's dead. So she's doing it to him. You're an extension of him. What is
So her miyun it can't be oiker.
What is miyun then?
Exists.
What is miyun? Miyun is what? That's what I'm saying. You're right. The lumdus, it sounds like of what miyun is, and that's what Rashi is discussing, which seemed to be, and that's Rashi's words. That's what he's bothered by. He says, "Nisun kamaya oker." What is miyun doing? Miyun says that what you guys did to me was, I'm allowed to say was not, because how could you leave without a get? At least rabbinic get. No, I was never married. That's what miyun is, a refusal. It's not just mikan labo, it's the mafreya. So what am I uprooting? I'm uprooting the whole original, I was never married to your brother. So why do I have an isay shesach? So says Rashi, you're right. It's a gzir de rabbanan. Really, biblically, rabbinically, whatever, you should be allowed to marry the brother. But since you didn't do miyun by the first brother, the one that died, and it's because of that marriage that's creating the situation of yibum, it looks like Eishes Hachem. It only looks like, because why are you even having this relationship with this brother that you're doing miyun to him? It looks like Eishes Hachem, and because that's why you're doing miyun. What do you have with him? Why are you giving him the miyun or whatever? There's no giving, but like, what are you doing with him? Saying, I refuse. Who are you talking to? Right? He's dead already. Right? So that's what the Gemara says later on, that from the moment of Nefila, she looks like Kalas. I mean, we'll see different cases that, but you're right, to the brother, she's going to be Muteres, because to the brother, she didn't do anything. The miyun was to this brother. He said, no, achvonish. You're telling him, who are you telling it to? Him. Okay, him you're forbidden to. Him you look like Eishes Hachem. The other brother, the Ma'anis, is going to be permitted to, because she's not Eishes Hachem. She was never married to the first husband. And this teaching, like we said, of Shmuel, we'll see later on, Perek Beishameh in Kov Zayin Mabez, but we're talking about to him. And we're saying not only is the woman forbidden to him, but also is her tzara forbidden to that brother. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference about the Me'enes? The Shari La'achin, you tell me that the Me'enes herself, and again, this really is on Kov Zayin, this blot, so it's a little bit complicated, but the basic idea is that the Me'enes herself, you're telling me is permitted to other brothers. Why? Because she didn't do anything with them. So there's no nidre ke'esh hazaf. So tzaranami. The co-wife is the same thing. Lo yavde b'maisa. He didn't do anything with her, meaning even to that Yavam himself, she should be permitted. Where Taisa asked that still should be like a tzava of erva. But the point is that the question is why? Why is this halacha that we opened up with Rabbi Ma'ukva Mashmul's halacha that the tzara of the Ma'endes is going to be aser? Why is Ma'endes aser? Why is it any different than Ma'endes to the other brothers who nothing was done with her and them? Here also the tzara, nothing was done with her to that brother. So why is she forbidden? So says the Gemara, you're right. It's a gezerah. It's a rabbinic decree. Mishum tzara is bitim Ma'endes. Here it gets a little bit more complicated because what happens is you're right. Be'etzim, the tzara of the Ma'endes. Why would we say it's forbidden to the brother? The miyun, if anything, we said, should really even permit the ketana herself to that brother because she's a nachar. She was never married to this. So what do you want from her as a tzara of her to the brother? Like, it doesn't even start. If you think about this halacha, it doesn't make sense. What are we saying tzaras Ma'endes asura? The whole thing doesn't start. Ma'endes herself should be permitted. She's saying the Ma'endes herself is forbidden because she looks like Eishazach. So she looks like Eishazach, so what does that have to do with the tzara? We're trying to ask, what do you mean, why wouldn't it look like a tzaras erva? But al kapanim, nothing was done with her, just like you say the ketanik is permitted to one of the other brothers because nothing was done. So the tzara also nothing was done with that brother. So why are you saying she's forbidden as a tzaras Ma'endes? So the Gemara says you're right, it's all the gezerah of tzaras bitim Ma'endes. What case is that? Let's say the ketana is his daughter of the brother that's falling for him for yibum, and his daughter, let's say, as one of the 15 arayas, he does miyun to the father. So we say that the first marriage was uprooted, and that makes this other woman not a tzaras erva. Like we said in general, miyun says that she was never married, so she's not a tzaras erva. Now, how could Rashi has just another question. It says, how can you say that it's bitoy? Exactly. How could his daughter be doing miyun to him, the father, if it's only by Yisema that the father didn't do kedushin for her? So that's what's called the Yisema b'chaya av, which is you could have an orphan when the father's still alive, as the Mishnah teaches at Perek Beishamai. If there's a girl that her father married her off and then she got divorced, and she's still a minor, she's considered an orphan in her father's lifetime, meaning because her father loses the rights from marrying her off. Because he already did it once and he can't get a second shot at this. Now, if she goes and she gets married to her father's brother, through her mother or brother's marrying her off, then she could do miyun to the yavam, which is her father, when her father's still alive. Because of that case, therefore we say that in general we're going to say that tzaras Ma'endes is going to be asur. Because of tzaras bitim Ma'endes. So the Gemara says, wait a second, why is that a reason why tzaras Ma'endes is forbidden? If tzaras bitim Ma'endes mi asira, the case that you're telling me, when the tzara of a regular Ma'endes, which should not make the tzara forbidden to the yava, you tell me you're making forbidden because of the case of if this Ma'endes is bitay, well then the tzara is forbidden. So therefore, even when it's not bitay, I'm going to say tzaras Ma'endes is forbidden because it might get confused. But that case is also not forbidden. But now we learned in our Mishnah in the beginning of the Masechta. The Mishnah said, "B'kulon imeisu amyanu." We said that all of them, that if they die or if they do miyun and or niskarshu, tzachasei mutavis. We said that okay. We said, hey, wait a second. If the minor does miyun, then she was never married. So even though as an erva she would exempt the other woman, but if she does miyun, she was never married, and therefore it's not a tzaras erva. So the tzara is permitted. So says the Gemara, wait a second. Dimyan b'man. Who did she do miyun in when we explained halacha on Daf base? Ilam dimyan b'bal. If it's talking about where the erva did miyun in the husband behind the grusha, that's the same thing as being divorced, meaning she just wasn't married at the time of the nefila, of when the husband died. Say Allah b'yavam, rather isn't it talking about where she did miyun in the yavam, which is her father, and you tell me that the tzara is permitted. So why you tell me that you're saying tzaras Ma'endes is forbidden because of the case of tzaras bitim Ma'endes? Our Mishnah says clearly, even tzaras bitoy is the erva. If she does miyun to her father, if she does miyun to the yavam, she's still going to be, the tzara is going to be permitted. Because that's what the Mishnah seems to be indicating by saying in case of miyana. It says, no. It's la'il mabal. The miyun is that the erva did miyun to the husband. But and there's two cases of divorce. You're right, there's a regular divorce, and the husband gives a get, and then there's a miyun type of divorce where she could walk out on her own. So the Gemara says, wait a second, I don't understand this. What's the difference when this girl, in general, when you do miyun in the husband, what happens when a yisayma that's a minor, unrelated, there's miyun to her husband? What happens then is that she's actually permitted to her father-in-law. Why is she permitted to her father-in-law? Because they're krinyal nisuin. Because she uprooted her marriage. She's like someone that was seduced. She's not his daughter-in-law. She was just seduced by his son. So I don't understand. Ki miyana b'yavam nami. Then when she does miyana to the yavam, let's say even her father, nisuin kamoy karker. So she's uprooting the original marriage, and what's the problem? Why shouldn't Sar's Bita Me'enes be permitted? Even if it's by the Yavam. Who cares? It's uprooting the original marriage. She was never married to the brother to be an Eishes Ach, to make the tzara, the co-wife, be a tzara of any erva. She was never married. Says the Gemara, Mishum Tani Rame Bar Yecheskel, because what Rame Bar Yecheskel taught, what did he teach? Tani Rame Yecheskel says, Mia Nababal. He says a related halacha. These are all like rabbinic concerns, as you can understand from the sugya. This is a different case, but it's the same idea. If let's say a girl does miyun in the husband, muteres la'aviv, so she's permitted to his father because she was like never married to his son. Biyavam, a regular girl. Don't think about the case we're discussing of a regular woman, unrelated to Masechtas Yevamos. But then her husband died without any children, and then she does miyun to the yavam. Asura la'aviv. She's forbidden to the father, meaning nothing to do with yibum. The father's not doing yibum, but she's doing miyun to the brother-in-law because her husband died without any children. So she's forbidden to the father. Why? Why would she be forbidden to the father? Because since the original marriage was effective enough to make her have to go and address the brother-in-law, so therefore, we see Mishas Nefila, at the time of the Nefila, Niriz Kikalose. At least it looks like his daughter-in-law, as if she's the bona fide wife, because what do you have to do with the brother-in-law? Because you were married to the brother. So you look like Kalose. That's what she's been to her father-in-law. Really, there's no reason to make her forbidden.
That's why she mutter, fuck it.
No, she's us. That's me and the Babal Mutes Lavi. But if she did it to the Yavam, then that's the main point of our sugya, and that's what we're actually coming to compare. It looks like Kalasa, because was tustem mit the bruder. Obviously, something was chal over here, and therefore you forbid it. Also, hachanami here also by bito mima'enes. When the so to speak, the erva bito, who's the man who does miyun, Mishas Nefilo, when his daughter falls in front of him for Yibum, and she has to do miyun to her father, Nivis, she looks like, again, these are all rabbinic ideas, she looks like Eishes Achib, and therefore the tzara looks like Kitzaras Bitoy, it looks like the tzara Bitoy. And therefore there were guys who in every tzara from the end, so it's a very interesting case. Comes out, it's even hard to even say it, because it's like, really? But that's what the Gemara is saying. Chacham know better than us. A regular girl who does miyun, really, it's like the whole marriage. So she should even be permitted to the brother, because it's not even Eishes Ach. No, miyun we say is forbidden because l'mais, the fact that you're falling for yibum, it looks like Eishes Ach. So any girl who does miyun to that brother, at least, not to the other brothers, although she's actually permitted, and we'll see that in Shmuel and Daf Kaf Zayin. But to that yavam, she's going to be forbidden. Now, the tzara of the me'enes should for sure not be problematic, because even the me'enes herself is only a rabbinic concern, and that's only to that brother, because they had something, like she did miyun to him. But the other brothers she permitted. So the tzara for sure should be permitted. No, tzaras me'enes is awesome. Why is tzaras me'enes? If a regular girl, no erva, mind a girl, 9-year-old girl, she's like, I don't want any of this yibum stuff, I'm out of here. Right? She does miyun to the yavam. The tzara, a regular woman in her 20s, is forbidden to the yavam. Shayches. Gizeret tzaras bita me'enes. What do you mean? You mean if that minor girl was the Yevam's daughter? So he's the Yevam's daughter, and therefore what? She does miyun to her father, so what? So it looks like she was a wife. Why does it look like she was a wife? Because what are you doing miyun to your father? You're obviously having a nefila. Oh, so then it looks like tzaras bitoy. It looks like it's niras. It looks like it, right? Because she's doing something with the father. You're doing a miyun azah. So you look like as if you were married. Oh, and that's bitoy. So therefore, they said every tzaras me'enes, because the tzaras bitoy me'enes, which is the problem because tzaras bitoy me'enes looks like tzaras bitoy. You with me? That's the reason why they said every tzaras me'enes is asura, because of tzaras bitoy me'enes, which looks like tzaras bitoy. Again, because it looks like, because you're having a nefila, you're having a hamlarai over here. You have to do something with the and tzaras bitoy is awesome. So therefore we asked it tzaras bitoy me'enes, and therefore we asked it tzaras me'enes. Similar type of a halacha. Amar Ravasi says tzaras ailanis asura. What's tzaras ailanis? The man was married to two women. And one of them was an ailanis. What's an ailanis? Ailanis means a duchranisa. The word ail is a male ram, which obviously does not give birth because it's male. So a woman who cannot give birth is called an ailanis. Now, if the husband died without any children, we're saying that both of them are forbidden to do yibum and they're exempt from chalitza from the brother. Why? It says in the pasuk in the Devarim. Pasuk says v'hoya b'charin, that the firstborn asher tele, which asher tele is not going on the firstborn son, but actually that's fit to give birth. That's what the pasuk says. He will be Yalcham Hashem Achav Hameis. He should take over his dead brother's place and marry his widow. And we saw that his brother's name should not be obliterated from the Jewish people. When it says Asher Teled, Pradal Islandess, that excludes the woman also. If the widow is an islandess, then since she cannot give birth, so she's not included in the mitzvah of Yibum. Says Rashi. So since she's exempt, and this is a very big lumdus in this mesechta, this idea about what Rashi is saying. So that makes the islandess have an issue of Ishasach because she does not have the heter of Yibum. She's a regular wife, but she does not have the heter of Yibum because Yibum is only Asher Teled. So now Hatzara is a Tzaras Erva. Now Rashi says, although this pasuk of V'hoya b'char Asher Teled, the Gemara actually later on the Chavdal Manal tells us is talking about by the oldest of the brothers, and here's where we learn that the mitzvah is by the oldest to do Yibum. So how are you talking about and qualifying the woman? But he says still we expound this prat on the islandess from Asher Teled because that's extra, because the Bechor was talking about the Yavam. So what's Asher Teled? Asher Teled is coming to tell you that the woman has to be able to give birth from that union, and therefore that excludes that of an islandess. And again, since she's patim midaraisa from Yom Chalitza, she becomes an Erva Eshelat Shalei B'Makom Mitzvah, and therefore that makes even the Tzava also patim because she's a Torah of Erva. But Master Rav Shishar, here's the answer from the Mishnah later on the Lama Alpha of the days. Mishnah tells us Shloisha Achin Nesuin Sholish Noshim Nachrias. You have three brothers married to three unrelated women. So you have Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and married to these three women, not sisters. But may say one of them dies. V'asaba Sheni Maimer. Now one of the other brothers does Maimer, which we didn't. This is the first time we're seeing it. This word Maimer, which we'll see later on. It's a rabbinic kedushin of Yibum. There's no halach of kedushin, but there is a rabbinic idea about Maimer, which is the statement that they make that they're going to consummate this relationship, which is a rabbinic kedushin between the Yavam and the Yevama. But it's not the mitzvah of Yibum yet. So what the second brother did Maimer, Umeis, and then he dies. So halach is Elu. So these two women are chaltzos v'lo misyamis. They do chalitza but not Yibum. Why? So Rashi explains, he gives the background. Had the second brother actually done Yibum, consummated the relationship, so then what that would do, and this is the classic lumdus that's inherent in Yevamos Daf, that would already neutralize the first Zika, because that Zika was already activated. It's already accomplished its goal. He already did Yibum. And then there would only be Zika of the last marriage. When he would die, you wouldn't have the first brother Zika there anymore. Then the first brother's requirement of a yibum because he would be already have already accomplished with the second brother. But Maimer doesn't exclude Zika. So it's like as if there's a little bit of the first one Zika and a little bit of the last one Zika when the second brother dies because it was never consummated, it was never finished. It was like he added on his own Zika because he did Maimer with him. So it's like a quasi state of like halfway, like a little bit of the first brother still there because no one ever did yibum to it, and but he did a Maimer, so it's also Chatzi his wife. So what happens is now you can only do chalitza not yibum. Why? Because Hashem says a pasuk in the Bible. It says when you can have brothers together, and it says meis achad mehem, one of them is going to die, and he does not have a son, then the wife cannot go marry someone else outside. It says Yevamos Daf. Her Yavam should have a bia with her. What that teaches us when it says meis achad mehem is mishal zikas yavam echad. The woman has to have only the bond of one yavam, and not the bond of two yavam. Now, in contrast to this case, where when her two husbands die, she has the zika of both of them, because the first one no one ever finished up that zika bond, but the second one also did Maimer, so she's also somewhat a yavam from her. A Yevama from him. So that's considered a zika shnei yavamin. Therefore, you cannot do yibum. Now, as Rashi points out, this case is only rabbinically forbidden because the pasuk is nasmach to be alma, as the Gemara explains later on Perek Daled Achen, and therefore it's not totally exempt. Therefore, the halach is you do chalitza and you're not going to do yibum. Now, additionally, you cannot do chalitza on one to exempt the other one because they're not really coming from one bias. Because because he never really married her. So therefore both of them are going to require chalitza, meaning to say that you have the wife of the first one and you have the wife of the second one. The second one did Maimer to the first one. He has his own wife. It's not really, you can't do chalitza on one of them and exempt the other one because that first one really is also the first one's wife and not the second one. And the second one's only the second one's wife, not the first one. Now, had he not done Maimer, so then we would only have had the zika of the first one. That would be two Yevamos coming from two different bottom, and then of course you would do yibum to both of them. But by doing Maimer, you complicated this, and now you could only do chalitza. You have to do chalitza on both of the wives of the second one, and not yibum. Now, we learned on this that Rabbi Yisrael says that Zuhi, the wife of the second one, is Sodas Eishes Ach Me'av, is the tzara of the brother's is his paternal brother's wife. She'is nafila goimla. That what happens is that the fact that she fell two times from one zika is what causes her to become asur. We don't find the whole Torah such a thing that it should be forbidden because, as Rashi even points out, really it's only rabbinically that she's forbidden because there's no real issa erva, and so we're saying that tzara is going to be forbidden. So this is actually interesting. We bring in this very complicated case only actually to ask a question on the halacha that we said before, and we'll see this later on this mesechta, this case. But ultimately, it's an interesting case where it's only the nefila that makes her become asur. There's nothing inherently wrong with this woman that her first husband died and then the second one did Maimer and then he died. But the fact that she's coming from two Yevamim, from two of the brothers, so it's not meis echad mehem. It's really meis shnai mehem, and she's falling to the third brother from both of them. So it's an anomaly. It's a one woman wonder. You don't have this anywhere else. It says, wait, Zuhi, when you're saying this is the only case of Rabbi Yosef, is the mutimah. What's that coming to exclude? Lav mutik tzaras ayilus. Isn't that coming to exclude the case that we're discussing of tzaras ayilus that the Sharia that then actually it would be permitted? Meaning to say, what happens is by as actually Tosfos Shani explains that we're only coming to exclude a case that's similar. Like this case, that's the paternal brother's wife, that really is excluded from a pasuk for yibum, and not because of an erva. Meaning, what's interesting about tzaras ayilus and the tzaras of these shnei yevamim is that they're both excluded from a pasuk in yibum, not inherent erva. They're not biblically prohibited woman, it's because Asher Taled. Asher Taled says, okay, you cannot be applicable for the mitzvah even because you can't have children. So to over here, what does the pasuk say? It says, but here, both of them died, not one of them. So aren't you telling me that it's only the case of the tzaras of the Zika Shnei Yevamin that then the tzara is going to be forbidden? But it sounds like with the tzaras alness is going to be permitted. So how can you tell me that tzaras alness is going to be asur? So the Gemara no. It's actually excluding it the other way around. Meaning, umay zuhi, when we said that zuhi, that this is a unique case of zikas beis yevamin, zuhi, the isin nefila goyrem law, this is where the nefila is what causes it. So tzarasa by chalitza, but the tzar is going to require chalitza, like we explained, it's only rabbinically prohibited. But islanders, afilu chalitza le'boyer. Even biblically, you're not going to even require chalitza at all. So it's excluding it, but not to make it mutter, but to make it actually more asur. So as islanders is going to be, you don't even do chalitza. In contrast to the case of tzaras beis yevamin, zikas beis yevamin, where there, at least the tzara does chalitza, because like we explained, of course there's no chalitza. It's only rabbinically that the brother did mimer, and therefore it's only rabbinic halacha, this whole idea, zikas beis yevamin. But by the case of tzaras alnes, it doesn't even do chalitza. So my time, it says, I'll tell you why. The word taled excludes tzaras alnes that's going to be forbidden. You don't even need chalitza because the halacha is that she becomes an erva once she came into the yibum situation because it's asher taled, and she can't. So she's an eshesach, and it's an eshesach. It's a tzara. Bahad rabbanan. This halacha of zikas beis yevamin, as we will explain later on Perek Dal Achen, that's also on the third brother, is only rabbinically a problem, and therefore, like any rabbinic erva, the tzara is going to do chalitza. Another question the Gemara asked on Rav Sitzan from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, "Bekula on all these ardayas, in mesu, if they die, I mean, or they did mean, on this gasher they got divorced, so alnis, or they found to be an islandess, so they say him mutarais. The tzaras are permitted, even if they're an erva. So how you tell me tzaras islandess or regular islandess, not an erva? The tzaras forbidden because asher taled. Here, even if she's an erva, we see that the tzara is going to be permitted. So how can you tell me tzaras alnus is forbidden? So the Molekat's not different. Why not? Khan over here by Ravasi is shehikerpa. He knew before he got married that she's an islandess, and therefore there's no mekach toyes. The whole point of islandess is that it's a mekach toyes. No mekach. She is his wife. So the tzara is a tzaras alnus. The Torah says it's exempt from asher taled. So when she falls for yibum, she's a eshes ach. She yesh leibanim, and the tzara is a tzaras erva. Khan in our Mishnah, where but he didn't recognize her when he got married that she's an islandess. Oh, it's a mekach toyes. She's not his wife. So therefore the tzara is going to be permitted because it's not a tzaras islandess. It says the more dekanamidiktani. It's a precise reading of our Mishnah indicates it. Because what does our Mishnah say? Shenimtzu, she was found to be an islandess, which after she got married. Like it doesn't say shahoyu that she was. No, therefore that resolves the question. The tzara of the islandess in our Mishnah that's not a problem is because she wasn't even married. The tzaras islandess that we said is a problem is he knew all along. So it's no mekach. She was his wife, but when it comes to Yibum, she becomes an erva of islandess. So Amar Rabbi says he disagrees as a continuum of the base. He says hilchas the halacha is that tzaras islandess, the tzara of an islandess is mutaras, is permitted, and even if he recognized the brother who died knew beforehand that she is an islandess and she was his wife. So he disagrees with this whole premise of the tzaras islandess being asur, and even if the one that was an islandess was his daughter, the tzara does not become forbidden as a tzaras habas. Why? Because when the Torah says the tzaras ever is forbidden, it's only b'moka mitzvah that it's forbidden. But here, since she's an islandess, which even without ever, it's a very big lumdus over here that Rashi is explaining, that even without it ever she's not fit for yibum. So the tzara is a tzaras erva shaloi b'moka mitzvah. So therefore, the tzara is not forbidden. Because, as we'll see later, we'll see in the next Mishnah, on the next Daf, that the erva, the tzara of an erva is only forbidden when it's b'mokem mitzvah. When it falls for yibum, the co-wife becomes forbidden because she's a co-wife of litzrar of the Yevamos, of the erva. But here, the islandess is not even falling for yibum. it's a lumdus. Erva falls for yibum. But you're an erva, what can I do? We can't go ahead with this yibum. So therefore, the tzara is a tzaras erva. B'mokeh mitzvah. The idleness is always inherently shaloi b'mokeh mitzvah. You're like a mother that we'll see in the next Mishnah. The tzara is not forbidden because it's not b'mokeh mitzvah. The whole halacha of tzara is a chiddush, right? Where did we get this idea? Why would a co-wife be forbidden to do yibum? Because that's the drasha, the b'mokeh mitzvah, the tzara becomes forbidden. Let's say someone's daughter is married to some man. That co-wife is not forbidden for her father to marry. It's only b'mokeh mitzvah. And idleness is never b'mokeh mitzvah because you don't fit into the category of a shetele. So there's no tzaras erva of tzaras idleness ever, says Rava, and the tzaras idleness is always going to be permitted according to Rava, even if it's tzaras bita idleness. There's no tzaras erva because the idleness intrinsically is anti-yibum. She doesn't enter into the midst of yibum at all. She doesn't fit into the category. You're not even in the parsha, and therefore you never create salves according to Rava. It says what do you do? I thought you told me that the halacha of our Mishnah of tzaras bita is only if they were found out to be honest. You're saying that it's even going to be pater even if they knew beforehand. Weren't you medayik that it has to be only nimtzu? Says you have to read it even that it wasn't shenimtzu. It's not only because of this idea of mekach tois. No, even if it's not mekach tois. Idleness is not in the parasha b'chlal. She does not create tzaras if she's not idleness. Now, similar to these cases that we mentioned, Amid Aleph, the Gemara brings other opinions. It says achas tzaras ma'enes. Whether it's the tzara of a minor who did mean to the Yavam, not like Shmuel, who was geyser. Remember, tzaras ma'enes, we said on Amid Aleph, there was an opinion that says it's going to be asr, which we said is a huge chiddush. Because we said tzaras ma'enes is only asr because of tzaras bita ma'enes, which even tzaras bita ma'enes is only asr because niras ke tzaras bita, it looks like. So he disagrees. He says, no. Rabbi Yechid says, a tzaras ma'enes, v'achas tzaras alnis, which is also not like Ravasi, which is like Rava, who also disagreed on tzaras alnis. He says, no, there's no problem with tzaras alnis. What's the problem with tzaras alnis? Alnis doesn't even fall for yibum machal. You can't create a tzara if you're not in the parsha of yibum at all. And ba'achas tzaras mafzeh gurushasai, also the tzara of someone who takes back the woman he divorced, which that we discussed on the previous daf, which we had, that was the question he had regarding when they got married. She already married someone else, and then she's mafzeh gurushasai. He says, kulan mutaves are all mutter. There's no problem. There's no tzara over here b'chlal. There's no erva, or there's no b'mokeh mitzvah, and therefore you don't create tzaras. In all these cases in which we had opinions to say that it would create tzaras, Rabbi Yechon says all three of those do not create any halacha of a tzara. Now, related to the halacha of the Mishnah, the Gemara brings up a very important sugya regarding contraception, which this is the sugya, but we're just touching it. Tana Rabbi B'Kamid Rav Nachman says, Shalosh noshim mishamshus b'mayich. 3 women are permitted to put a mayich, some type of a cloth, in the area of where they have intimacy, so that the woman should not become pregnant from intimacy. Ketana muberes umanika, a minor, a pregnant woman, and a nursing woman. Now, why would they permit it to have contraception? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Because Ketana, a minor girl, is shemetis abel v'shemetamas. She might become pregnant. She might die. It's too harsh on her body. Muberes is a pregnant woman. Shemetasa ubara sandal. Her fetus might become a sandal. What's a sandal? A sandal is a figure that doesn't have a figure of a face, meaning a child that doesn't have a face, which the Gemara tells the needed of Chafim Beis, that every sandal has another child that was there. It's like similar to a person slaps his friend, and then he turns his face backwards, that when she's pregnant and she becomes pregnant again, that then one's pushing the other one, it diminishes the form of the first one, and therefore we don't want her to become pregnant again. And Manika, regarding a nursing woman, is Shema Tigmal B'Navi Yamas. Maybe the word Tigmal is like Vayigomel, it's like stopping. That maybe if she becomes pregnant, she's going to have to stop nursing her son because of being pregnant, and therefore that's going to cause the child to die. So these 3 situations of a minor, a pregnant woman, and a nursing woman, they're allowed to use contraception. And Be'ezu Ketana, and what's considered a minor that's fit to become pregnant and to die, it's from a girl that's 11 years old and Ad Yud Beis Shana B'Yamecha, until 12 years old. But Pachis Mikan, yes, I come, but if a girl is under 11 or over 12, then Mishameshes Kedarka B'Hailechas. Then she could go ahead and have intimacy in the normal way. Why is that?
What about twins?
Yeah, what about it?
Oh, yeah, you just mentioned
right.
before a few seconds ago.
Right, about being pregnant and having another pregnancy.
Yes.
Right. So it seems like that it's different. And Taisus discussed exactly what happens, but I'm saying when you have a twin, when you have a pregnancy, that's the one pregnancy. So that's how they're developing. But one's already started developing, and then you're going to start a new embryonic process. It's a different part of the process that might go ahead and create a deficiency in that fetus.
Right.
Now, under 11, she's not becoming pregnant. More than 12, if she becomes pregnant, she's not going to die. It's only between the age of 11 and 12 that's what we're concerned for, and that's where she could use contraception. That's the B'rimei. The sages, they say, no, achazu, even the 11-year-old, mishameshes kedarka b'leches, she could have intimacy in the regular way, meaning without contraception. Why? Because in the Shemaim Yirachmu, from Shemaim they're going to have mercy. Mishum Shemim, it says the pasuk until Mishayim b'soyim Hashem, that God He watches over the simple people that even though you might be doing something that has an element of danger, but you do things in the normal way. Okay, but our main thing is the Gemara asks as follows: With the Ka'amashim and the Sabashim, it's a little bit of a complicated riot. But from the fact that the Brisa said that the 11-year-old girl might become pregnant and might die, doesn't say she's for sure going to die. So Mechlal, the inference says they could get that there's an 11-year-old girl. The Ma'abav is a very complex raya, again, just to ask the question, that could become pregnant and V'loi Mesa not die. If that's the case, comes out, you could have a mother-in-law who could do mian. For example, let's say she gave birth when she was 11 years old, where she became pregnant, she didn't die, and then someone was Mekadesh, the daughter, comes out that the mother-in-law is a Ketana, and because she's fit to do mian till she's 12 years old.
Kaddish, the daughter is 1 year old?
Yeah, baby, wait a minute, someone told my daughter is 14 years old, so you're 14 years too late in getting a shidduch for her. Right? Saying she could, as a baby, as a month, you could be Mekadesh already. That says, we learned that you cannot say that if the mother-in-law or the mother-in-law's mother or the father-in-law's mother, which are one of the 15 rayas, shenimtza alnis, that they were found out to be an islandist, or shemina that they did miyun, why not? Why can't they do miyun? She's a ketana until 12 years old. And the mother-in-law could be her daughter that was 3 months old, was married to Chaim Yankel. Chaim Yankel dies. Now the brother, what's happening, right? You could have a mother-in-law that will fall. You could have a minor that the mother-in-law that's married to the brother who was married to the 3-month-old, and now his mother-in-law is falling to him for ibum. But she's a minor; she could do mian. So why are you saying that they can't do mian? So the Gemara has a few answers. Amos say shemet tesaba v'tamas. You're right. The girsa should be maybe she become pregnant and she will die, not maybe. She will die. Because the Rabbi Balavai says gvul yeshla. There is a certain limit. There's a boundary. Before the age of 11, she's not getting pregnant at all. Between 11 and 12, he makes a ba'ubra mace. Yeah, she's going to die, and the fetus is going to die. After 12, she's going to live, and the fetus is going to live. So therefore, yeah, it's not maybe, it's for sure. So therefore, if she does have the 3-month-old, then she can't do mian anymore. Meaning, in other words, it's not possible between 11 and 12, because between 11 and 12, she will go ahead and she will die. Now, says is that really so? But Rabbi Shloimy says, you cannot say by the mother-in-law and the mother-in-law's mother and the father-in-law's mother, that they were found to be announced, here the wording is different. It says because she already gave birth, says Rashi, from the fact that it says it's because she gave birth, the inference is that she is a minor, because if it's not a minor, you should have said she's already an adult, and still you're saying that she could give birth. Didn't you tell me that she's going to die? How you tell me that she can't do mean because she already gave birth? So the Gemara says, you're right. You're right. The reason why she can be Mishameshes b'mayich when she's between 11 and 12 is Shemet Tesaba v'Shemetamas. You're right. It's not for sure that she's going to die. She might become pregnant and maybe she's going to die. So obviously she could give birth. So Belakasha, back to the question. So you could have a case of Chamoisim Me'enes even if she gave birth. So Rav Safri says yes, but what's known in the Lumdis of Yevamos is Bon Marehim Kisiman. Children are like Siman. Meaning, even though you're not 12 years old yet, you cannot do mean anymore. Because you're already considered like an adult. Just like 2 pubic hairs is considered similar like you're an adult. Giving birth is a sign you already reached the next stage, you're an adult. This time, some say, children are better than Simon. Says Gemara, what's the difference if it's like Simon or better? Says Gemara, even according to that he said in Mesechus Nida, that even when the girl brings 2 pubic hairs, she can still do mean until you have more black than white over there. You have to have a lot of hairs. Even though by Simonim he holds they have to have a lot more, but by children he agrees that they're better than Simonim, and just having children will already allow you to say you're a Gedolah and that you cannot do Min anymore. So any Chamaisi automatically cannot have Min. One more approach as the Gemara to get into Yevamos Daf says, no, Ein Banim B'loi Simonim. You can't have children without Simonim. Meaning, if someone gives birth as a girl at 11 years old, 11 and a half, there's a chazaka, so you always know it's called siman and siba. It's a siman that she has siman. Meaning to say, although generally that halacha is you could do miyun up until 12 because we presume she's a minor, but when she brings simanim within the 12 years, she cannot do miyun anymore because they're bona fide simanim. The Zvid holds that tichzman k'til achazman regarding siman. In other words, many opinions hold that we say it's a shum, it's just like a mole, it's not like a real thing. He holds that you could bring simanim if you have 2 pubic hairs. So even though she doesn't have it, but banim is, you can't have banim without simanim. And therefore, if you're 11 and a half, we know for sure you have 2 pubic hairs, and therefore that's why you can't do miyun, because we know that you're an adult. Says why don't you check? Why don't you check? He's saying that for sure she had simanim if she had children. Says we consider that maybe they fell out. Says Gemara, that's good according to one that says is needed of membam and alf, that we are concerned. According to one that says we're not concerned, Michael, what are you going to say? According to one that says we're not concerned, because of the pain of childbirth, we're concerned that the 2 pubic hairs, because of the rupture of the trauma of the area, that the hairs fell out, and therefore even according to one that says here we're going to be chayshish, and therefore you cannot have a case of chamaisim and me'enes, even though we have shalosh noshim mishamshas b'moich. You could have a girl that between 11 and 12 could have a baby, and she's still going to be a minor. So why can't you have chamaisim and me'enes? Either because banim hadehim kiv simanim, or adif simanim, or because you can't have children without simanim, and if you're having children, then it's for sure that you had them. Thank you to any type of